Hi everyone, welcome to week 7 of the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge. This week I'm going to work on using everybody's suggestions on ways I can use up the items I still have left in my pantry. So for tonight, for supper, I had a little bit of cornflakes left after the last items I made with cornflakes. I think I just made peanut butter balls. And so someone suggested coating chicken in it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to make chicken bites coated in cornflakes. Now the recipe I'm using did call for 2 cups of cornflakes and I didn't have quite that, so I had 2 random packages of Ritz crackers my children have opened up, and they both just had 2 crackers in it, so I added those to the mix. I figure you probably won't taste it. I just crushed those up in there. So let's get started on making this cornflake coated chicken bites. So the first thing this recipe tells us to do is preheat our oven to 450. So I have my oven going, you can probably hear it. And then it tells you to crush up all your cornflakes. Well, we're a step ahead because our cornflakes are crushed from the last recipe we used those for. So now I'm just gonna you're supposed to take 1 pound of chicken. I just have a package of chicken from Costco that probably weighs a little more than a pound, but that'll be all right. And I'm gonna cut it into bite-sized pieces. It is still a little bit frozen, but I feel like that makes it easier to cut for me. The reason I chose the recipe that we're using is because I found it a little unique. With this recipe, we're gonna use honey, and we're gonna coat the chicken with that. It calls for 2 tablespoons of honey. I'm just gonna squeeze some on it and make sure that the chicken is completely coated. Once you get honey on there, it says to just mix it around and make sure all the chicken is coated. We'll add our spices next. We're gonna add half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and half a teaspoon of smoked paprika. And I'm just gonna make sure the chicken gets really well coated with all those seasonings. Okay, that's really well mixed. To coat the chickens in the cornflakes, it says you can either pour the chicken in the bag where you were supposed to crush your cornflakes, or just pour the cornflakes on top of it. Since my cornflakes are in a container, I'm just gonna pour them in the chicken bowl. I actually feel like that worked better for coating the chicken than when I do stick it in a Ziploc bag. If you have a wire rack to put on your baking sheet, you should use that. I don't have one, so I'm just gonna use a silicone mat. And I'm gonna just place all the pieces of chicken on it. If you don't have a silicone mat or a wire rack, you can just spray your pan with non-stick cooking spray. I've made Cheez-It chicken this way before, but I have never made Cornflakes chicken, but I think that my kids will love this because I know they love the Cheez-It chicken. This is going to go in the oven now on 450 for 8 minutes, then I'll flip it over to the other side and bake it an additional 4 to 5 minutes until the chicken's done. Here's the chicken when it came out of the oven. Autumn and Zandria are trying the chicken bites. How is it, Autumn?
It's good.
Is it good, Sam? That one was a winner. The second item we're making this week is gonna be some homemade Uncrustables. Someone commented and gave us this idea for our apple pie jam. I'm gonna use just some apple jam that I also made since I've got a bunch of it also. And Zandria is gonna help me. We're gonna make apple peanut butter Uncrustables. I have this thing of rings that my mom got from Pampered Chef and never used. And this is the 3-inch one, and it looks like it's gonna fit perfectly on our bread. So we're gonna put some of our apple jam and peanut butter on each one, and then we'll cut them out. Okay, we just have some kind of in the middle of both pieces of bread. Now we're gonna try cutting them out and see how it works. I don't know if you can see, that fits pretty perfect on the bread. don't pick it up. It looks like that worked pretty well. Xandria wants to go ahead and try it and see how good it is.
Yummy.
Is it good? Do you like that apple jam? Does it taste like apple?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. We'll make some more of these and stick them in our freezer. I'm gonna try it real quick.
Yummy.
That is very tasty. We're not gonna waste the crust either. We'll save that and eat it later. We used about half of a jar of our apple jelly and we made 6 sandwiches. Xandria ate one. And now I'm just gonna stick them in a freezer bag and pop them in the freezer. And then she can just pop one out whenever she wants it. Xandria really enjoyed the first one she ate, so I don't think these will last long in the freezer. Next, we're gonna make some homemade tortillas. We have a bunch of black bean burgers in the freezer I bought because I like the black bean burgers better than a real hamburger. But they seem to be a little dry when I fix them, so I found a recipe for black bean tacos, and that's what we're gonna have for supper tonight to use up those black bean burgers. I've always wanted to try to make my own tortillas, and so that's what I'm gonna attempt today. I just have a simple homemade tortilla recipe from Pinterest, and I know that they can be hard to make, but we're gonna give it a shot.
We got some flour.
We're gonna start off with 3 cups of flour,
I want to pour it next.
just regular all-purpose flour.
Pour it.
I have to stop talking over me.
There we go.
1 teaspoon of baking powder and 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Now we're just gonna mix this up a little bit. Now we're gonna add 1 cup of water and 1/4 cup of olive oil. It says to just mix it with a fork and then my hands until it's all combined. Once I have it mixed really well with my hands, I'm just lightly flouring my surface, and then I'll knead it by hand for 1 minute. Now I'm gonna cut it into 12 equal pieces, and then we're gonna shape each of those pieces into a ball. Can't say these are exactly equal, but good enough. Now we're gonna roll them into a ball. Okay, we have all 12 rolled into a ball. Now we're gonna cover it with a kitchen towel and let it rest for 10 minutes. After they're done resting for 10 minutes, we're gonna take them and roll them out until they're nice and thin, and then we'll pop them in the hot skillet until they get a little brown on each side. Pretty warm, so we're gonna pop it in the skillet. It says to let it cook 30 seconds to a minute on the first side and then flip it over. I also have my warmer out so that I can put them in here when they're done to keep them all warm. I'm really hoping this works because we eat a lot of tortillas in this family, and it'll be nice if we can make our own homemade. She has the next one nicely rolled out. We'll pop it in. I'm getting started on our Chipotle black bean burger tacos. So I have these Chipotle black bean burgers that I got at Costco a while ago. It was actually just their Best By date, so it's time to get them used up. So I'm gonna make these tacos that I found a recipe for. I have all of our tortillas that I made earlier. I threw them in the oven after I finished making chocolate chip cookies, and so that kept them nice and warm. So those are warm. I'm making 2 Chipotle black bean burgers. I'm just fixing the patties the way the instructions say. In addition to that, we're gonna use some cheddar cheese, sweet corn, lettuce, and lime juice. There's a few other things that the instructions called for, but I didn't have those on hand, so we're just gonna have to do without. I think we'll be fine. We might add a little bit of salsa to the top for flavor, but otherwise I think it'll be fine. So let's get these burgers fixed first. Our 2 burgers are completely warmed through, so I'm gonna just cut them up into small little pieces and put them aside in a bowl. There's our burger. I'm gonna leave my burner on medium and put a little bit of butter in the bottom of the pan. And on the butter, I'll put one of our tortillas. And put a little bit of cheese on it. A little bit of burger. And a little bit of sweet corn. Then we're gonna wait for the cheese to melt. And once it's melted, we'll take it out of the pan, add a little lettuce and a little lime juice, and it will be ready to go. Okay, our cheese is melted. I'm gonna take this off. Add a little bit of lettuce. Try to just drizzle a little lime juice. I'm sure fresh squeezed lime would be better, but I don't have any limes. I didn't share my tortillas earlier when they were done, but I thought they turned out great. I'm just waiting to see how they taste, but it wasn't too bad at all making them. I'm sure they would have looked prettier if we had one of those nice presses, but it didn't turn out too bad at all. There's the finished product. Not the prettiest presentation, but I'm sure they're gonna taste great. I figured I'll try them on camera. That's really good. I really like the hint of lime. I think I'll add some salsa to mine just because I like a lot of salsa. Maybe a little sour cream too. But it's really good, and this tortilla is really good too. Cut myself. Tastes just like the stuff we buy at the store. Definitely gonna be making those again. So here's a very creative way to use up your Chipotle black bean burgers if you have some of those left in your freezer. The final recipe I'll be making for this pantry challenge is some crunchy French toast. This was a suggestion by a viewer to use up some of my cornflakes. I've used up all the cornflakes, but I still have frosted flakes. So we're gonna try this with frosted flakes. Now the recipe I'm using does make 8 pieces of French toast, but I don't need that many, so I'm only gonna make half a recipe. To get started, I have my griddle preheating to 350. I'm gonna do 1/8 of a cup of flour, 1/8 of a cup of sugar. Hopefully it isn't too sweet since I'm using frosted flakes instead of corn flakes. 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And I do want to mention, I recently switched over to the pink Himalayan salt, and that really threw me when I was making my tortillas because I could see little pink flakes in there, and I was wondering what in the world got into my tortillas. And then I figured out it was just the salt. So that's something you might just keep in mind if you switch from regular salt to a colored salt like the pink Himalayan salt. You might see that. Half a teaspoon of vanilla extract and half a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I'm gonna mix that up really well. Now I'm gonna add in 2 eggs and 1/3 of a cup of milk. I have that nicely whisked together. I'm gonna use these little cheap bowls we got at Target for this. I think they're probably the perfect size to stick my bread in. They're a pretty big bowl. In one of the bowls, I'm gonna put the 1 cup of frosted flakes. And in the other bowl, I'll pour this mixture. I'm gonna put a little butter on my griddle. It's nice and hot. I wish I had Texas toast, but we don't have any of that, so I'm just using our regular bread. I'm just gonna dip it in the batter. And then we'll dip it in the cereal. There we go. Our French toast is done. It looks really good. We're tasting the French toast.
It's pretty good. That extra little crunch.
That's what I was gonna say. It is good. The cereal gives the toast a nice crunch instead of just being soft. That was a good one. Nice suggestion. Thanks for hanging out with me on the final week of the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge. I'm real excited about how much I got used up that's been sitting in my pantry and my freezers for quite a while. This really gave me an opportunity to use those items, and it kind of forced me to, which was really good and helpful. I hope you've all found ways to use up items that have been sitting in your pantries and freezers. I know some of the recipes we found will continue to use because we really enjoyed them, and I hope you did the same. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.